Welcome back. I'll start us in a couple of minutes, but while you're waiting, you can see we're starting with the same setup as last week. So if you can create some kind of setup that allows you an incline and then some support under the legs, and I'll show this again during class, but just so you can get ready for it, either a blanket or if you don't have blankets, a block or something under the legs, or alternatively, you can also stretch the legs out in front of you. And today you'll definitely need 2 blocks during the practice. And I don't think you'll need, well, a strap might at some point be handy for some of you, so you might want to have it available just in case. And the other thing that will be really helpful today is clear wall space. It's not absolutely required, but it will be very helpful, and I will demo at the wall too. So whatever you can arrange there. You could be in front of a bookshelf, like this would work, what you can see here with my bookcase. That's enough. We just need a little bit of a support behind us for some balancing. So just think about that. And it'll be a bit before we need it, but just in case you need to get something prepared, that'll be helpful. All right, and thank you for muting. I think we are starting to record at this point, so it'll be helpful for you to stay on mute so that we... Great, okay. I will go ahead and ring us in. Welcome, everyone. Lovely to see all of you. It's so sweet to teach a cohort class and see the same faces week after week. It just feels beautifully familiar and cozy. So thank you for being here. So this is class 3 out of 10. And let me just say as a preamble, next week we're not meeting. We're meeting for session 4 in 2 weeks, just in case you missed that nuance when you signed up for the classes. So today, we will continue our journey into yoga philosophy. Last week, we talked about the first limb of yoga. Those were the ethical aspirations. Today is dedicated to the second limb of yoga. And the second limb of yoga, I like to think of it as life commitments or life choices we make to create a purposeful or meaningful life. These are really 5 practices that help us care for ourselves and that help us ultimately care for other people. So they too lay that foundation that I talked about last week for the development of the 5 layers of self. They too support a healthy body, a healthy energy in the body, a healthy mind, a connection to community, a connection to spirit, a connection to just something besides yourself, something beyond you. And they do that by honoring your own well-being and creating your own well-being. And so for me, the niyamas, or this is what they're called in Sanskrit, these 5 commitments, are really all about finding a balanced way of taking care of yourself and your loved ones, of taking care of yourself and your greater community, of taking care of yourself and the greater planet. It's really about moving outward with purpose and meaning. And these 5 practices are sort of very skillfully designed in terms of how they're sequenced to get you ready for that kind of work. And so the first 2, in my way of thinking, are the platform for the last 3. There's a total of 5 in case I didn't already say that. And the very first one, so the first of the first 2, is translated as purity. And what it really is sort of finding this middle point between overdoing and underdoing things that enter your body, things that enter your life space, and how you deal with them. So at the most concrete level, it could be cleanliness, keeping your space clean, taking a shower before you jump into a pool, like really, really basic sort of body cleanliness things. But it's also about keeping your environment pure, in the sense of not over-cluttering, but also not being too aesthetic about it, right? Where you sleep on a wooden board because you want to be so pure in your lifestyle. It's about finding the middle way between those extremes of purity. This is also purity in terms of stimuli that you allow into your life. Watching too much television or being completely opposed to television in a really stern way, and finding sort of a balanced way, shopping or not shopping, what you're eating or not eating, all of those choices that we make that affect how pure we feel in our body, in our energy, and in our mind. And so it really is managing all of the inputs in life and managing yourself and your environment in a way that you feel balanced. You feel pure but not purified, but also not sort of neglectful of yourself. So it's balancing inputs is kind of how I like to see that. The second commitment is translated as contentment, most typically. I like to think of it as cultivating a sense of peacefulness, a sense of groundedness. And along with finding that sense of purity, centered purity, peacefulness is also a centered thing between extremes. And so to me, contentment, sometimes it's like we don't care, but that's an extreme. Not caring is an extreme. Being over involved is the other extreme. When you find that peacefulness, that grounding with what's happening in your life, you're sort of at the center. You're feeling peaceful with where you are, and you can stay grounded through challenge. You feel balanced. And so that second principle of finding contentment, finding peace, is really about caring enough that you feel anchored into your life and you have the space to care for people. But not being so hyper-focused that you get caught up in causes and you can't ever step back. You get overzealous, you get over-involved, you get over-engaged. So it's all about finding that balance between being overly excitable about something or not giving a hoot. It's finding peace, groundedness at the center. And this is the theme with all 5 of these. They really are about finding the middle way between the extreme expressions of these commitments. So those first 2 are the platform for the next 3. So if you can rest in peacefulness, if you can feel grounded and you feel pure, like you've managed your life inputs and outputs, then you are ready for the next 3, which have a name in and of themselves. It's called the yoga of action, or the yoga of engaged action, is sort of a newer translation for this. This engagement has 3 pieces. The first is to have discipline or fire. So it means having the energy to be engaged. And again, you can see where this could quickly go into 2 extremes, where you burn your fire so fast that you burn yourself out, or where you're trying to kindle a fire and you know the flame just doesn't quite spark. You need to find that middle ground where you have a nice, steady sort of discipline going in your life of committing yourself to the practice of yoga in the broad sense, without burning yourself out and without getting cold on the practice. So it's really a commitment to stick to the practice with engagement and with purpose. And purpose is actually one of the 5 practices. But so that's the third one, is cultivating enough discipline, enough fire that you can actually find a cause and then be engaged with that cause. The fourth commitment you make is to be introspective, to look inward and to make sure that you have analyzed yourself enough and you have analyzed information enough around you to put your fire in the right spot, right? We need to reflect on where we put our resources. And so that's what this commitment is about, is to look inward enough and to read enough and to find teachers who can guide you so that you actually operate from a base of balanced self-study and knowledge. And so it's not a cultivation of sort of narcissistic self-inquiry, right? People who are always just looking at, well, what does this mean for me? But it also means that we can't not work on creating some insight. We really need to find the middle way. We need to cultivate introspection. We need to have a consistent program of self-study so that we understand what's going on inside of us, so we understand information we have, so that we can then bring to bear that fire we light on this platform of contentment and purity. And then the fifth step in this process, the third aspect of engaged action, is to find a meaningful purpose toward which to direct all of this commitment. Because if we have nothing to light our fire for, what's the point, right? And so this is a devotion to a higher cause, but it's not blind devotion. It's not faithfully following some guru who tells you how to live your life. But it's also not about not giving any thought to what might give your life meaning. It's finding that middle place again, of finding meaning, finding purpose, and then using the fire you light of discipline, using the self-study you engage in, of introspection, to move your life toward that greater purpose. And hopefully that greater purpose is not something about just you, but something that transcends your individual self. And so it's a 5-step program, really, of caring for yourself so that you can then put to bear your own resources, your own fire, your introspection, for a greater good. I think that's a pretty amazing sort of limb of yoga, and we so often don't talk about it in yoga classes, but today we will talk about it a lot in the sense of always cultivating that middle way so that we can be engaged in the world with meaning, with purpose, and with introspection. So that's where we're headed today, and so now I invite you to take a comfortable leaning back position. If you don't have a setup that allows you to do this, this is the same thing we did last week. You can also sit upright or you can lie flat on your back. If you do have a setup with a bolster or a big cushion or something, you might then also take a rolled blanket, just like we did last week, bring it up on top of your feet, and then wrap it under your legs so that when you open the legs, there's a support under your thighs so that you're not overstretching the adductors. If you don't have a nice blanket like I do to wrap around, you can also take a block and prop your leg in that way. Or you could take a couple of pillows or stuff a nice heavy shirt under there, just anything to give yourself some support. And once you have that, you can just lie back on your bolster like this and let your arms rest by your side. And of course, your face will face the ceiling. Mine's turned right now because I'm talking to you. And if your neck is hyperextended here, bring a little towel or a little pillow under the head so that the forehead is higher than the chin. And there's a very slight tuck in the throat. And invite your body to wiggle itself into place, to create little movements and settling sort of aspects of your being to really help your embodied self, your physical self, to feel comfortable here. And feel free to readjust as we spend some time here to create comfort for your body, to find that middle way, not being overly wiggly, but also not freezing into place. If it feels appropriate, you can close your eyes here, or you can bring them to half mast. You can just have a downward gaze, or in any other way, create a sense of ease in the eyes, a sense of ease around how visual stimulation might or might not enter your awareness here. And then as your body settles in, gently begin to draw your attention to your breath. Sometimes at the end of the day, it takes your mind, your observing awareness, a moment to really become attentive and mindful of the breath. So give yourself the space to struggle with that for a moment if necessary. Maybe making a little bit of extra effort in the beginning so that then you have greater ease later. Again, finding that middle way of settling your attention onto the breath. Soft attention, soft effort, engaged ease. And as you're becoming attentive to the breath in this way, perhaps begin to notice the breath in the body. Notice where in your body you can feel the breath most concretely. And this may be different for every one of us. For some of you, the breath might be most palpable in the rising and falling of the belly. You might even place a hand on your belly to really highlight that motion. For some, the breath is most tangible in the expansion and contraction of the lower rib cage. You could even place the hands at the outsides of your low ribs to see if you can find the breath there. For some, you might notice the breath as movement of air in the throat. Air that is cool, traveling into the throat, and breath that is warm, traveling out. For some, a tangible way of feeling the breath might be a sense of cool air entering the nostrils and a sense of warm air leaving. So give yourself the time, the pleasure to really notice where in the body you sense the breath, and maybe you feel it everywhere. Maybe you feel it as a vibration from your core to your edges. There is truly no right or wrong here. The breath has so many different manifestations in the body, so just observe with curiosity, with an open heart and open mind. As you find a beautiful relationship of breath and body, Continue to breathe in this attentive way, having great clarity about the fact that breath and body interact each time you inhale and exhale. And then begin to notice how deeply you are breathing in this moment. Does the breath feel shallow or deep? Are you moving a lot of air or very little air? Or a moderate, neutral amount of air? Just notice, what is the volume of air? What is the volume of breath that is traveling into the body and out of the body? How full do your lungs feel at the end of the inhalation? How empty do they feel at the end of the exhalation? Is there a sense of balance? Are you moving as much air in as you're moving out? Or is one part of the breath fuller than the other? Again, meeting the breath here without judgment and just noticing how the breath is moving. And then begin to notice how long it takes you to breathe in and how long it takes you to breathe out. You might just get an intuitive sense of that, or you might actually choose to count, or to use the alphabet, or the number of times you can say your name mentally as you're breathing in and then as you're breathing out. And as you pay attention to this, to the length of the breath, begin to notice if one half of the breath is longer than the other. Does the inhalation take as long as the exhalation? And then from here, I invite you to find a sense of balance in the breath. So that if you've noticed that the breath is shorter on one cycle of the breath than on the other, so if the inhale is shorter or longer than the exhale, make them even. See if there's a way, if it feels appropriate for you in this moment, to alter the breath just ever so slightly so that the length is the same on the inhale as on the exhale. Maybe that means lengthening one or shortening the other, or maybe a little bit of both. This will be your own introspection here that will guide you to how can you create balance in the breath here. Balance in the length of the inhalation and exhalation. And then notice the volume of the breath, how much breath you're moving in and out. And see if you can also balance how deeply you breathe in with how deeply you breathe out. Moving the same amount of breath into the lungs as you're moving out of the lungs. Creating balanced fluctuations in the breath here. Finding in essence the middle way. Inhalation and exhalation being matched to each other by finding the middle ground. This equal breathing may support a focused mind. It may support ease in the body. It may even balance your emotions. So just notice how that equal breathing reverberates through the different layers of yourself. Your body, your energy, your mind, your emotions. And then release the effort to alter the breath if you haven't already. And invite the breath to return to its natural rhythm. It may or may not change. It may have found a natural rhythm already. The idea is simply to release any effort to control the breath, to change the breath. Finding ease. Letting go. Take one or two more rounds of breath as you begin to prepare mentally for a journey back to a seat. So you might envision your path first to the right side. How will you support your head? How will you support your body? And then you might imagine how you would come to a seat. And then go ahead and make that journey to a seat, if you're not there already. And once you have found a seat, your hands can rest on your thighs in your lap, or you might bring your palms together at your heart. And I invite you to bow your head to heart center if that feels appropriate, so that you can invite an intention, a greater purpose, a greater meaning for your time on the mat today, really bringing to bear that fifth commitment. And if something came to mind that feels appropriate to seal into your own heart, you might do so with your next inhalation. And if something came to mind that also feels appropriate to send into your community, then you might do that with your exhalation. And then you can release your hands if they were lifted. You can open your eyes and lift your focus. And then you have to remove all of your wonderful props from your mat. We will start in tabletop with our asana practice. And so in tabletop, sometimes if you have sensitive knees, it's actually nice to have a blanket for the knees. So make a wise choice here, sort of honoring where your own body is. So this is how that would look if you were working with a blanket. You'd just be kneeling on it like this. And if you have really sensitive ankles, you already have a rolled blanket, you could actually put that behind you and then wrap the feet over that blanket in such a way that it supports the ankles. So yogi's choice. Again, finding sort of that middle way, right, of making enough effort here to bring comfort to the body, but not so much that you want to go to sleep because it's too comfortable. And then place the hands underneath the shoulders and just check in with your wrists here. If they're pretty unhappy in this position, you can always walk the hands forward a little bit so that you have a less acute angle in the wrist. And you can also move during the practice to bring yourself some relief here. And then as you inhale, let the belly become heavy, move toward the floor, and let the head rise naturally. So this may not be a huge range of motion for the head. And as you exhale, draw the belly button toward the spine, bring yourself into cat, making a nice arch here, finding the middle way. Not overdoing, but not underdoing. Lighting a fire here of movement. As you flow now with your own breath through cow and cat. Inhaling into cow, exhaling into cat. Once again, marrying the breath to your body as you move that in. Finding a beautiful balanced breath here. You did equal breathing a moment ago. Maybe you can access that here so that your cow and your cat are essentially the same length. If they follow an equal breathing cycle. Just experiment with that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's no big deal. And then notice the effort in your body, and can you find a middle way in the body too? For example, it really helps to create some stability at your core here by drawing the pelvic floor in and drawing the belly button in when you come into cat. But then it's nice to find some ease and to let go when you move into cow. So can you find that beautiful balance, even in the body? Not over-efforting in cat, but also not letting the bottom drop out in cat. Kind of finding that pure spot, that peaceful, contented spot as you're moving through this little flow. The next time you've finished your cat position, come to neutral. And then take your right hand, walk it out in front of you on the left, and come to your left elbow. And stretch the right side body long. Yeah, take a nice long breath here, or maybe 2 or 3, depending on your own breath cycle, and feel that stretch. From the top of the hip, all the way into the right armpit, and maybe even into the little finger on the right hand. Grounding through the left elbow, grounding still through the legs, and stretching, flexing through the side body. With your next inhalation, rise up. And with the exhalation, change sides. Left hand reaches across, right elbow and forearm ground to the floor. The left hip draws back to create that sense of length in the left side body. Breathe here for a few breaths. And notice the peaceful stability that you can create in this beautiful stretch. Not over-efforting and not under-efforting. Finding enough fire to bring some heat into this pose, but not burning it out. With your next inhalation, rise up and switch sides one more time. Right arm reaching to the left, right hip reaches back, creating length in the right side body. Nice balanced action. Finding stability. Finding ease and effort and ease. With your next inhalation, rise up. And with the exhalation, change sides. Left hand travels across to the right. The left hip efforts back as you release into the stretch. Releasing perhaps tension that you've held in the left side body all day. Feeling that tension drain away and supporting the movement. With your next inhalation, rise up and bring both hands back under the shoulders. From here, I will switch sides to show this on the right side first. So from here, with your inhalation, you might widen your knees here. I always have that urge. That really gives me a more stable base, a more stable platform. And then with your inhalation, take the right arm, sweep it up to open the heart. And then with the exhalation, slide it between the opening of the left arm and leg. And then make this a beautiful flow. We're inhaling, your heart open, and then you're sliding into yourself. You're creating a beautiful balance here by moving from one extreme to the other in the body, and through that pendulum, creating balance. Balance in your physical experience, balance in your energy. We'll just do that a couple more times, well, 2 or 3, depending on how quickly you move. Finding that peaceful contentment in the flow that comes from neither over nor under efforting. And then when you return, switch sides. So now as you inhale, bring your left arm up, open the heart. And as you exhale, draw it through the opening on the right. Maybe noticing if the 2 sides of the body have a different response here. Maybe it takes something different to create balance on this side than the other side. For me, I had to adjust my left leg to work out some tension in the left hip. So you might just notice, where do you need a little more effort? Where do you need a little more ease to create balance, to find the middle way? Two or 3 more cycles. Working with honesty for your own breath length and volume. And then when you've returned from this, come back into your tabletop shape. If your wrists are challenged at all by this, take a moment to shake out your hands. This is really great for the joints, by the way. Anytime you feel like you've compressed the joints in the hands or the wrist, shaking it out really helps. It brings synovial fluid back into the joints. Creates a little space in the joints. You could even pull on your fingers a little bit. That'll help too. So anything you can create here to make space. Yeah, you know by now I'm a big fan of shaking. So, all right, and then come back into your tabletop, unless you're already there, of course. And now from here, as you inhale, lift the right leg to the side, and as you exhale, bring it down. This is the famous fire hydrant, right? Lifting the leg up the fire hydrant. And just notice any tightness here in the hip And then make a wise, sort of peaceful decision of how to balance effort and ease here. How to bring purity to this pose so that it can become a platform for engaged action that's sustainable. So you're not overdoing, but there's enough fire that you want to keep going. Two more. And then as we switch sides, if you decide you need to shake out your wrists, feel free to do that. You could also do the second side on your fingertips. For some people, that doesn't actually bring greater ease, so just notice if that helps you at all. As you then lift with the inhale and lower. And so the leg moves out to the side. Yeah, beautiful. And just pay attention, are you balanced side to side? Or is your body in some state of imbalance here? Is one hip maybe a little tighter? Or maybe one hip is shaped differently than the other, and you'll never have balance. That's nice to know too. And just two more. Sweet. And then I'm turning so you can see me better, but you don't have to. You can stay where you are on your mat. You're going to bring your legs wider apart. Your feet might naturally want to come closer together. Just notice what your own body would like to do, and feel free to indulge that. And then come to your elbows in front of you. And then your movement is that with the inhalation, you come forward. And with the exhalation, you move back toward the hips. This is a bit of a hip opener. If this is really easy for your hips, make the feet a little bit wider apart. And then play with that. Where is the middle way for you in the spacing of the feet? Maybe you can bring your lower legs parallel to the edges of the mat. That will bring a lot more stretch into the hips. And so work with, with introspection here of how does this flow reverberate in your anatomy, and how can you create enough fire here to feel engaged, but not burn yourself out. So we'll just take a couple more of these little frog kriyas. These are wonderful hip openers. Great. And then the next time you come forward, you can bring the knees together and you can come to standing. All right, and then go ahead and shake it out, especially your wrists. But just wiggle yourself around a little bit. Really feel those hip joints. I love the hula hoop moves, right? So just notice, where do you need to release some tension in the body here that may have crept in as you were warming up the spine and your body. All right, and now it might be helpful to find a place where you can lean at a wall, or you could lean at a bookshelf. You may or may not choose to use it, but it's nice to have it just in case. And then also have a strap handy in case you might want to use it. So just in case, and I'll have it here so that I can demo what I mean. And then find your mountain pose, find your Tadasana. So ground your feet into the earth. And then here too, think about, okay, how can I find a peaceful alignment for my body here? How can I find the middle way? How can I draw roots and rise up at the same time and find balance? Maybe you're drawing the kneecaps toward the hips, the pelvic floor, up into the abdomen, and maybe you draw the belly button toward the spine to really create a strong and stable foundation. Maybe the shoulders roll up and then the shoulder blades settle on your back. From here, I invite you to pour your weight without moving outwardly, but just inwardly pouring your weight into the left foot. It's like you're unbalancing yourself for a moment. And then from that grounding in the left foot, lift the right leg and catch it with your hands. And this is where a strap comes in handy, right? If your arms are not long enough to catch that leg, you can use the strap like this to catch the knee. And then just notice how closely can you bring that knee to the chest. So be introspective here for a moment. Find your middle way, not over-efforting and not under-efforting. So no heroic effort, but also not a collapse. Finding that path in the middle. Lighting enough of a fire that you really feel the steadiness of this pose. You can continue to use the strap. And draw that knee closer to the chest. Being satisfied to just be introspective about how this pose feels right here. Where do you feel stable? Where do you feel unstable? And how can you create balance, contentment, purity? And then hold your right knee with your right hand. The left hand can come to the left waist, or it can hang at your side, or it can come out at the wall to hold you steady if you're not leaning into the wall. And then use the right hand to help open up the right hip. Now this is just like fire hydrant. This is very similar to our frog kriya. Your hip is not surprised by this movement. You've already done it. Notice how different it feels when you're now adding a sense of balance to it. Even if you're leaning into the wall or if you're hanging onto the wall, there is still balancing action because you're on one foot. And so use your introspection to decide, what does it take to create stability here? How can I keep my fire lit? To want to adhere, to want to keep practicing, to want to stay committed to this moment. You might still have a strap here around your knee. You might have done this like this. And if you had a strap here, you'll probably need a strap for the next step, which might mean that you use the strap to catch your foot. And then you draw the foot into some spot on the left leg. If your hand reaches, you can bring the hand to the right ankle. Use the wall for support, either leaning into the wall or just using your left elbow to make contact with the wall. To find yourself in your version of tree pose, maybe your foot is at the thigh, maybe your foot is in the left groin, maybe your foot is at the left calf or at the left ankle with the toes planted on the ground. Use your introspection to decide which is your practice. Which aspect, which variation of this shape allows you to feel balanced and engaged. Now, if you would like to experiment a little bit here, you could play with variations for your arms. Maybe the hands touch at the heart. Or maybe they stretch up and overhead. Remember, you can always lean at the wall. Or you can have one hand at the wall to stabilize yourself. What feels fiery for you here without burning you out? maybe creating a little bit of movement. Notice, introspect, make a decision about what brings a joyful yet peaceful balance for you here in this variation of tree pose. Then let the arms return. And we will come out of this shape the way we came in. So we're not just going to release that leg. We will work with fire even on the way out. And so clasp your right ankle, either with the strap or with your hand. However you came down, come out that way. Bring the leg out to the side. Then rotate it in. Give it a nice squeeze. And release it down. And then we'll do the other side. So remember, you can be all the way at the wall, or you can just have your right hand to the wall here as you now pour your weight into the right foot so that you can lift the left knee and catch it. You can use the strap to catch that knee. And give it a nice squeeze. From here, you can release the right hand down either to your waist or to your hips or to the wall behind you as you open the left leg out to the side. Standing fire hydrant. Notice how that might change the dynamic of the hip opening. And then either using the strap to catch the foot or the hand to catch the ankle, bring that left foot toward the right leg, touching it down wherever it can make contact. It might be at the groin, it might be at the calf, it might be at the ankle with the toes on the ground. Experiment, introspect, and neither over effort nor under effort here. Light enough of a fire that you feel like, yes, this is engaged action. And then play with your variation. Hands can be at the heart, or maybe your arms open up. Maybe the hands touch above the head, maybe the arms are spread wide, maybe you want to sway in the wind, cooling some of the fire of the pose with movement. And then ultimately, back out of the shape the way you came in, returning the hands to the heart if they were lifted, and then reaching out for that left knee, opening the leg up, drawing it forward, hugging it in, and releasing down, and then shake it out. In this posture, you compress your hip quite a bit, and so shaking the legs out afterwards is really, really important to bring synovial fluid back into the hip joint and the knee joint, really creating openness here. So from here, I will demo on the wrong side. Well, actually, I guess I can. Can you guys still see me if I'm way down here? Can you just give me a thumbs up? Yes, great, good. All right, have at least one brick handy, but maybe even two. And place it ways out to your right, kind of like what you might think a torso or a leg's length distance might be. And then stand again with your back against the wall. We will take tree pose yet again, so now you have a sense of where we're going. So if you want to move at your own pace into that shape, you're absolutely welcome. I just recommend that you use the same process of first hugging that knee in, bringing your knee joint on board, and then moving the knee out to open the hip. Right? We do this first rather than bringing the knee in, the foot in first to protect the knee joint, because now your knee joint is beautifully stable. And now when you clasp your foot and you bring the foot to the opposite leg, your knee joint is protected. And your hip is as open as is natural for your hip joint. And then just take a moment in tree pose to balance, to center, to find contentment here, a sense of peaceful groundedness. And now this next step might feel a little odd, so bear with me. What you'll do now is you'll bring that right leg to the wall or toward a bookcase or wherever you are, or if you're in the middle of the room, just pivot it around a little bit so that you're facing the long edge of the mat, whether you have a wall there or not. And you might notice that your hips automatically swiveled a little bit. And that's kind, that's introspective for your hip joint, for the alignment in Warrior Two. So now all you have to do is bend the left knee a little bit and step the right foot forward, and you've landed in a Warrior Two leg that is completely natural for your hip joint, because it's the outflow from the stability, the contentment, the fire, the wisdom you created in your tree pose. And of course you can make adjustments here, right? So find that 90-degree angle of the right knee above the right ankle. And then if you would like, you can bring your arms into warrior. Feel your own strength, feel your engagement. This is the ultimate Kriya Yoga posture. This is engaged action, and so enjoy it. And then from here, straighten the forward knee so that you're coming into triangle pose. If you placed your bricks auspiciously, your right hand can come directly to them. And maybe your legs have to adjust a little bit. And then you have the wall. So if you want to, you can bring your triangle all the way to the wall here as you reach up or overhead, whichever you prefer, or the hand can stay on the opposite hip. And just notice, how does this triangle feel? Is there engaged action in your core? Can you introspect and find an even better middle way? Not a better shape, a better middle way, right? And then from here, release the left hand down. Step the right foot back under the knee. Grab your block. Plant the block about 1 foot ahead of the right foot, directly at the wall. So there may be a gap between the right foot and the wall, but the brick will be at the wall. And then step onto just the right leg. And then roll yourself open with the left leg long, pressing through the heel. The right hand is planted on that right block. The wall is catching you as you come into a half moon. Radiating joy here. As you're revolving around your own body, your hips are open, your heart is open, your mind is open about what is possible in this moment. If you don't have a wall, you're working a whole lot harder because you don't have a wall to catch you, but it is possible. And then release the left hand down, step the left foot back. You're back in Warrior Two legs. This time bring the right elbow to that right knee. And once again, roll the heart open for a side angle. You can be at the wall or away from the wall, whatever lights your fire in the most appropriate way. If the moment moves you, you can roll that left arm forward and up to extend your side angle pose even more. Find your variation, your truth, your content and balanced pose. And then circle the left arm behind you, straighten the right leg, turn the right foot in, and jog it out a little bit. So really shake yourself out here. Make a transition a happy one. Notice what else you might need in the body. Twist, hula hoop, whatever it takes, right? To wake up any joints that went to sleep or to remove any tension that you created anywhere in the body. Noticing if you feel silly and then doing it anyway. All right. And of course, you know we have two sides, so we have to repeat this on the other side, right? But you already know where you're going now, so the mind is at ease. So this time, take your blocks and bring them about a leg's length distance to your left. Once again, find your mountain pose. And then you can move into tree pose at your own pace, starting by pouring your weight into the right leg so that you can lift the left knee. Settling into each step without grasping for the next one, so that you can stay balanced and fiery and content all at the same time. And then either holding on to something or holding on to the wall, open, if you didn't already, to the side, clasping either with your strap or your hand, the left foot, and planting it wherever feels appropriate on the right leg. Foot into leg, leg into foot to create that sense of balance, the pulling together, the marrying of the right and the left leg at that intersection of the sole of the left foot and the inside of the right leg, wherever it touches. Find your fun variation of tree, maybe hands at heart, maybe arms stretched overhead, maybe some movement to cool the fire of the pose. Notice, introspect, what does it for you here? Ultimately circling the hands back to the heart. And then stabilizing yourself, either by leaning into the wall if you're not already, or touching the wall with the left hand as you release the left foot from the right leg, keeping that hip open, moving the leg now to the wall, or lining it up with the long edge of the mat if you don't have a wall. You notice that natural movement forward of the right hip. This is truthful to your hip joint, right? It's the perfect way of aligning your setup for Warrior Two. I wish we came into the pose like this always, because it's the healthy way for your joint. And then step down from there into your Warrior Two, and just notice how sweetly balanced you might feel here in this shape. And then, if it feels appropriate to you, you can float the arms up, creating effort to lift the arms, but then settling them down as if you could rest them on a shelf, to find that sweet balance between effort and ease. And using your own introspective skills to decide how deeply to move into the pose, which variation to choose. Maybe the arms are too heavy today to be lifted. And then release the arms down, straighten that forward leg, that left knee, and find your blocks with your left hand for your expression of triangle pose. Hand starts on the back of the right hip so that your heart can roll open. This is always a beautiful variation of any shape, right? When the heart is open in the shape. And then notice if that right arm wants to float up or overhead, or if it wants to point the other direction, there's no right or wrong way of holding that right arm. And your alignment in your forward hip and your back hip, you worked really hard to get it just so, but still check in. Never stop introspecting. Never stop self-studying to see if the body really is in a content state here. Now from here, you release the right arm down and then step the left foot back so that it's under the knee. Move your blocks a foot or so ahead of you, and then let yourself move up first. And then roll the right hip, well, really, you're rolling the hips open, you're rolling the heart open, you're stretching through the right leg as you come into your variation of half moon. You might really notice just how incredibly balanced you feel in this very difficult pose by moving into it with intention, by moving into it with introspection, by having created balance in your energy, in your breath, in your efforts. If you feel super happy here, you could even let that left arm dangle, not using the blocks at all and holding yourself in this shape here with your core. But not doing that if that burns out your fire. And then return the hand to the block if you released it. Bend that forward knee. Step the right foot down. Adjust your feet as necessary. I was off my mat, so I had to readjust a little bit. And find your variation of side angle pose. Noticing maybe the relative ease of this posture after you've been in your half moon. And then notice where you might want to have the right arm. If you want it up and overhead, I actually suggest you circle it forward and up rather than back and up. It works better with the anatomy of your shoulder joints. With your next inhalation, release the right arm down if it was lifted. With another inhalation, straighten the leg, turn the foot, heel toe your way in, and then guess what? You're gonna shake it out. You're gonna jog it out, you're gonna hula hoop it out, whatever it takes to release any tension that may have crept up into any part of your body. For me, it's the shoulders right now, so I'm doing more arm movement. So self-study, introspection is absolutely key to knowing how to go through your asana practice. It isn't about following my instructions. It's about reading your own body, your own energy, and then adjusting and adapting to what you're observing. That's wise yoga. All right, and then face the top of your mat. Bring your feet mat width apart. Oh, and make sure you have your blanket handy for Shavasana so that you don't have to get back up, because we're starting to move down now toward the mat. And when you are ready from here, begin to bring the knees out, to bring yourself into a squat. Your heels can be lifted here. That's just the anatomy of your ankle joint. And so my heels can touch the floor. Yours may not be able to do that. It's no big deal either way. Just come into the squat the best way you can. And then if it serves you, You can bring your, I'll come this way so you can see. You can bring your palms together and press the thumbs into your heart. If that doesn't serve you, you can bring the arms out to press them into the legs as the legs press in. Or maybe you want your fingertips on the floor to stabilize yourself. So use your introspective wisdom to know which variation of squat you want to take. This, or any other variation that resonates better in your own body. And then be here for a moment. Feel your breath. Begin to notice again how the breath moves through the body. Perhaps even inviting a sense of balance back into the breath if it became unbalanced. Equalizing the breath. Or just letting it naturally re-regulate itself, which your body knows so well how to do. And then from wherever you are in your squat, release that tension between the arms and the legs. And prepare to bring your bum to the ground. You can do this by using your core and setting the bum down, or you can bring the hands out behind you to catch yourself as you bring the bum down. Yogi's choice. Make sure you have plenty of runway behind you so that if you do choose to go down with just your core strength and you roll back, you're not hitting your head anywhere. That's kind of key. And then settle the bum to your mat. And then from here, Yogi's choice, you can roll down, holding your core, one vertebra at a time, or you can take your hands and walk your way down, one vertebra. There's no wrong or right. It's a matter of introspecting, finding your own wisdom, making your own choices for your engaged action that you want to take in this moment. And then once you're on your back, just be here for a moment. Just sink into the earth and maybe sigh with a sense of gratitude for this body that just took you to this, through this practice, for this breath that helped you muster the energy. And then walk your feet mat width apart. And with your own breath, begin to windshield wiper the legs, bringing both knees to one side and then to the other side. And you choose which variation. Do you move with the breath back and forth, or you just rest on one side for a while? And if you're staying just on one side, I'll prompt you in a moment when to switch sides. If you've been just on one side, maybe now come to the other side. The mind wanders away from the movement of the legs or the resting of the legs. Invite it to come back. Invite it to be present even for the less active part of the physical practice. And then the next time your legs come to center, keep them there. Look inward to see if you need to adjust your hips a little bit. Like I had the urge to walk the hips away from the shoulders a bit to lengthen my spine. And then give yourself a nice hug. Drawing the knees toward the chest any amount. They might be above your hip joints. They might come all the way to your chest. Doesn't really matter. Just bring them in and then notice what other movements your body might want to make. Maybe you feel the urge to rock side to side across the spine. Maybe you want to bring the knees out and back in, or maybe you want to draw circles with your knees, or make figure eights. Just notice. Invite the mind to stay anchored in the movement, in the breath, even here. And then I invite you to take any last little movements that your body would like. There are lots of options. You could twist, you could happy baby, just freestyle movement, whatever sort of wants to emerge. Not some well thought out sequence, but an intuitive sort of movement of the body. And then let that movement transcend into stillness and find your final resting position. Pulling a blanket under the head to prevent hyperextension in the throat. Maybe pulling a blanket under the knees if your low back feels strained at all. Or maybe finding some other arrangement altogether that serves your body better in this moment. If you're in a cool environment, you might want your blanket on top of you. Gently invite stillness into your embodied self. Knowing that you can wiggle your way into comfort here. Finding your balance. I invite you now to allow your body to become very heavy, to ground into the earth, to trust fully in the presence of the ground beneath you to hold you, to support you, to serve you in this moment. And as you allow your body to ground and be heavy here, rest in the knowledge that you have balanced effort and ease in your body. You have found the middle way between succumbing to gravity or fleeing into some light spaciness. You have found a place of physical balance, of stability, a place that integrates grounding and extension, heaviness and lightness. You have found the middle way for your body. You are embodying purity and contentment after sustained expression of discipline, introspection, engaged action. Invite your breath to flow freely and naturally. The breath is very wise. You can rest in the knowledge here that you neither have to control the breath nor that you should ignore it. Simply breathe in mindful awareness. Trusting the breath to breathe you. Trusting the breath to be your ally. And finding a way to balance your energy. You are breathing a breath of purity, a breath of contentment. Purity and peace that came from engaged action, from fiery discipline, from self-study. And then invite your mind to move to its natural state of being. In this state of natural being of the mind, you're neither ignoring your needs, your emotions, your thoughts, nor are you getting hooked into them, attaching to them, or trying to push them away. You're aware of their presence. You're aware of what's happening in your mind without trying to create anything. You have found the middle way between being overly self-preoccupied and being completely unaware of yourself. When your mind is in this relaxed state, you're both in touch with who you are and you can let go of any notion about who you should be. Your neutral mind is a mind that's pure and peaceful and grounded. Stabilized by introspection, by fire, and by a direction or a purpose that guides you. And as your mind settles, perhaps you become aware of a deeper sense of wisdom, a deeper sense of intuition that lies beyond your mind. A deeper inner wisdom, a place of perpetual balance, a place where the middle way is the natural way. From this place of wisdom, I invite you to surrender the body to the ground, the breath to the flow of energy, and the mind to its natural state. As we move into a few minutes of silence. Gently invite your senses to reconnect to your body life. Taking in the sounds around you. Perhaps feeling your clothing or your blanket or the air on your skin and ground beneath you. Perhaps noticing aromas or scents in the air. Maybe even blinking the eyes open for a moment to take in the visual stimuli around you. And then as it feels appropriate, gently begin to wiggle or move the body away, indulging intuitive movements or stretches. And if it feels intuitive, perhaps take a nice, deep, conscious breath in and out. Observing it from beginning to end, being fully present with it. Creating a very gentle, paced, and mindful transition back to a seat. Plotting out this journey in your own way. And then resting, once you have found a seat, your hands on your thighs or in your lap, or if it feels appropriate, bringing your palms together at your heart. And bow your head to heart center. Tune into this very deep inner balance, this very wise middle way that resides within you. And that is such a helpful way of guiding your life into self-care and other care. Tune into that capacity with an open heart and an open mind, so that you see opportunity after opportunity unfolding in your life to engage in this practice of purity, of peacefulness, of fire, self-study, and of using all of those skills to create a higher purpose. Thank you so much for sharing this practice with me. It's truly a pleasure and an honor. Take good care. Thank you very much.